This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Live tonight for the virtual Rockingham Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to LSR TV's coverage of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Icebreaker Winter Series, supporting the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth. 8 races in now to this 2020 campaign, and as always, we're happy that you're spending your Monday evening with us at your home for sim racing and the iRacing Sports Network. As always, the crew up top, myself, Evan Pasoko, along with Justin Prince, and our director downstairs, Randy Cheneth. And Justin, coming off of an exciting race 1 week ago from Fontana, California, where it was one Daniel E. Eberhardt who snapped a 5-race win streak for series points leader Andrew Ferdinand.
It was a heck of a battle between those two drivers much of the way, but in the end, it was Eberhardt who had the most speed throughout the entire race. He improved as the event progressed. Initially, he struggled on the long run, but by the time they reached the checkered flag, he was one of the quickest, if not the quickest car on the racetrack, and was able to pull away from Freenos to take that checkered flag. It was a heck of a battle to watch.
Didn't do much, though, in the overall look of the championship. Andrew Ferdinand actually gained on Kyle Trudell in the points. He now sits a whopping 72 points ahead of Trudell. Trudell in his own right's got a pretty comfy bubble of 31 points back to Kyle Cameron in third. And then it does get a lot more tight throughout the likes of Scott McClendon, Sam Nieto, fourth and fifth. You've also got Brian Chambliss, Daniel Eberhardt, courtesy of that win, Ross Cato, Bobby Terrell, and Thomas George, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 in the standings. But of course, you might be surprised. Take a double look. Yes, we are racing tonight at the Rock. We talked to all of the drivers in the RSR competition at the start of the season. Asked them among a couple of questions, what is one racetrack that you really wanted to see? And Rockingham was one that a lot of the drivers wanted on the calendar. Don't think we've seen it in RSR competition. You really haven't seen a ton of it in a big league competition like this in quite some time. So I know that everybody, Justin's been really looking forward to this race. It's still going to be, though, very challenging once we actually get underway tonight for 150 laps.
Absolutely. This is a very much so driver's track where many competitors will struggle to get the right amount of speed, be able to enter the corners, and be able to exit them. So every single portion of the track is one where it will challenge the drivers to the very limit. They'll also have to be able to balance out the tire wear and be able to as well handle the bumps that are across this older surface. This is a bit of a tough track, to say the very least, for some of the competitors. There was at one point a 2-second split in terms of practice times, that close to 1 second by the end of the session, but it is going to be challenging for these drivers to adjust.
Yeah, it is obviously more than that normal split that we see on a regular weekend. And if you see any cars at a racetrack right now, they are late goers in qualifying, less than a minute until we head trackside and get set to get underway for this one. But a driver's track is exactly how I would describe it. It is rough around this 1 mile racetrack. So it is, and it's also really, I think, Justin, not that wide of a racetrack when you're actually down there going through those bumps. So I think that drivers being patient, especially early, is certainly going to be key. And if we do get ourselves into a long green flag run, you talk about those intervals between the fastest of the fast and the slowest of the slow. If we get into a good green flag run, lap traffic as well going to be a constant factor.
Absolutely, especially since for some of the drivers, they have different approaches to braking and marks across this track. we could potentially see a lot of drivers have incidents on corner entry, especially into turn number 1, with how different some of the drivers attack that part of the racetrack.
With that being said, single car qualifying has drawn to a close. Let's go trackside and take a look at tonight's LSR TV starting grid. Fastest in practice and fastest in qualifying, Andrew Ferdinand on a pole. A 23.601 is the best time in qualifying by a mile. Almost 2/10 better than Daniel Everhart, who will go alongside in second as Zanardi looks for a second race win in a row. Behind them at R2, David Washington will start from third position. Sam Nieto will therefore start P4, a tiebreaker between he and Bobby Terrell, who gets P5.
Galen Goodman in return starts in P number 6 alongside Bobby Terrell. And row number 4 is Eric Stanford in the 19 machine. He'll start alongside Kyle Kamer. Scott McClendon starts in P number 9. And the first driver in the 24-second bracket is Brian Chambliss.
Continuing on through qualifying, Sean Kalis starts 11th, and Michael Kaczynski in 12th. Bobby Krug will roll from 13th spot. Steve Cunningham will be 14th, and Joshua Baird rolls from 15th spot.
The last car to record a time, Jonathan Lawrence starts in 16th this evening, with Brett McBride in the 17th position, the first driver on provisionals. The rest include Jonathan Goodell, Kyle Brooks, Trevin Valderrama, along with Ross Cato and Steve Durham. Those are the 22 drivers that are set to take the field here, Evan. Should be an interesting one.
Yeah, see that Rockingham scares a couple of drivers away, but I'm just as surprised that a majority of the field did queue up in this one. Thought some of the back may have opted not to. Let's talk more about the Rock. As noted, just a little bit over a mile if you want to get real technical, at 1.017 miles in length. Turns banked at 22 and 25 degrees with 8 on the straightaways, but it is not a perfect oval from up top, and that's what makes this racetrack so fun. And then when you get down trackside, it ain't that smooth either.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many bumps that these cars are going to be hitting at all portions of the racetrack. These drivers going to have to make sure they hold onto the steering wheels and take some of these corners carefully to make sure they don't hit a bump so hard that they get loose and spin around. That's what was one of the main issues in practice for some of these competitors. And today, they'll be pushed to the limit here by the Rock.
Third to last race of this Icebreaker campaign. And as we say always, we're happy that you're with us on LSR TV and the iRacing Sports Network. Pace car down and away. It'll be Andrew Ferdinand who starts his quest for race win number 6 on the year. As we say, let's go racing from Rockingham. Green flag in the air. A lot of tire spin topside as we race to 1 and 2.
Yeah, Nieto still having tire spin and stacking up the field into turn 1. He's dropping like a rock as cars trying to avoid him.
Hamer got that quarter panel somehow. They're all able to hang on. You can see some of the fanning now 2-3 wide mid-pack down the back straightaway. Nieto is able to get a handle on it. He was really that main car that I caught up top having a rough start. Now a battle for the race lead is on. Ferdinand led lap 1, but it is Daniel Everhart outside. He'll challenge for the top spot as they race down the back straightaway.
Everhart, though, has that preferred line in terms of getting the run to the back straightaway. And the thing is, though, that yellow line is such the better preferred line to get around that bottom. Those bumps can just carry you up the racetrack. It's not like, say, a smoother surface like a Chicagoland or even last week like Auto Club, where you were able to get a run on the top side. Not so much this week.
Well, you can see with the 9 machine of Everhart, he was really able to drive it in hard on the outside. That's when he almost cleared the 88, but certainly center off is where that machine used the bottom down in 4 to be able to stay up in front. And now Andrew Ferdinand tries to hold steady at about a 3 or 4 car length advantage. No other changes behind. Everhart still stays second, therefore, and David Washington ends up third. The only thing of note is because Sam Nieto had that big bobble, Terrell and Goodman pick up spots. Now a yellow early in this one. It's Kalis around in 1 and 2.
And talked a little bit about turn 1 being a trouble spot today. Well, he ended up just going around and carrying too much speed, to say the very least, in the Rick Miltech machine. And when you carry too much speed here at the Rock on corner entry, the track it kind of makes you pay very quickly. That's what happened to Kalis. He tried to save it from almost the corner, overcorrected, and bye-bye goes the race car as he spins around.
He had started in 11th and had actually maintained his position up until that point. So it's not like that Recomotech machine was noticeably struggling, but as soon as he got off it into the corner, it did not want to turn, or I guess wanted to turn too much, but he could not keep it down low. That thing spun up the hill. It brings out a single car yellow for the first one of this afternoon. All the race leaders, meanwhile, down to pit road. I don't think that anybody's surprised that tires are going to be a big factor in this one, but it looks like even on just as short of his 4-lap run, your race leaders want to come in.
Majority of them do, but some just rolled the dice. Bobby Terrell just rolled the dice along with Chambliss, Kamer, along with Brett McBride and a few others. So there is a split on strategy here, but the tire fall off is going to be something to definitely watch for. This is a track that drivers are not used to running, and for many of them might not have the numbers. It is a 2-second difference in fall off between fresh tires and old tires, and with how much we've seen in terms of tire spin at the start on cold, fresh tires, this could be paramount and very difficult on the start for the entire field.
And we'll see how all of this shakes out, because it is a good number of cars that stay out. Looks like you got, of course, you mentioned them, Terrell and Chambliss, Kamer, McBride, Cunningham, Lawrence. So if they all decide to stay out, it'll be 6 cars up in front. And I preface that because I had a feeling not all of them would. And it looks like Jonathan Lawrence is going to bring his NVIDIA GeForce Toyota down to the pit lane. So that number is going to be 5. Also, Sean Kalis did claim responsibility for that yellow. So he will receive an end of the longest line penalty where this race gets back away. That car currently stopped on the pit lane, so it may not matter anyways. This night may be done with early issues here in the NPHY.org 150. So I think this is a real big opportunity, not only for Bobby Terrell, who has a shot to go race with some clean air, but how about Brett McBride and Steve Cunningham, Justin? They're the ones that are going to get the big jump, 17th to 4th and 14th to 5th. As long as they don't drop like, to the back like a rock, they'll be fine. Now, you can lose 5 spots and not be really that bad off. If they can maintain top 10 to the next yellow, next cycle of pit stops, I think this would be a good gamble.
Yeah, that's what I was about to get to in terms of strategy. If they're able to hold on and get the caution timed up to even 10, 15 laps, I think it's going to work out for some of these drivers. But for even guys like Cunningham, it's going to be difficult to try and hold on to multiple drivers on fresh tires, regardless of them being pretty cool. So it's going to be a very curious restart, to say the very least. Already on to lap number 850.
And let's go out on top of the pace car this time through, so we will double things up. And it'll be a Bobby Terrell, Brian Chambliss front row of the very early restart in this race from Rockingham. Again, 150 laps. These drivers keeping them all sub 25 or so. We'll see how far they really start to drop off under race conditions. But if this thing gets a good green flag stretch in it, don't be shocked if this race does start to go by very quickly tonight here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. So we'll see how it plays out. There was a ton of tire spin, notably on the outside line for the initial start of this race. We'll see if they can figure it out, and if it is still persistent, how good of a restart that Ford Terrell gets to the bottom. The bright orange and white Chevrolet, the control car. We're going to restart now. As the base car heads off and in, he'll hold the back just a little bit longer. Green flag back in the air, and he's got a good run down to 1. So much so, here comes Kamer, rocking it on the inside to second, and out contact. Chambliss is going to get turned by McBride, and it is a big mess in 1 and 2. And it looks like some big names, including Eberhardt, involved in that one.
Freynosh also might have got a little bit of a tap from the 25 coming down, but there's the difference in braking zones coming right into play. We'll take a look at this from Eberhardt. He was one of the first drivers on the bottom line on fresh tires. Already, you'll see McBride. He's sending it a bit more deeper right into Chambliss's rear end. And around he goes. Nowhere for Eberhardt to go as he just nicks the right rear of the car in front and goes around for a 360.
very, very similar to what we saw at the start of this race when it was Nieto who got a little bit loose and out of control. Rhett McBride claiming responsibility for that incident as he paces around in third position. But take a look at the replay here on board as they race off and into the corner. And you can see, check up, the contact is there, and there is a little bit, I think, on the right front. Could have certainly been a lot worse. But then, of course, once the cars actually involved in that one went up the hill, a lot of drivers picked up some damage that they really had no chance of avoiding.
Yeah, we'll take a look at this one more time. And again, I want you to keep in mind, there's a ton. You mentioned it right there with the tire spin up at the top side. Chambliss just didn't get a good launch. But McBride carried a bit more speed on that entry. And that difference, again, is something I think we'll see a few times tonight. McBride just sent it a little bit more deeper. Ends up hitting the rollback to Adam Petty paint scheme up in front, and now he's got to worry about engine temps potentially because that nose is crunched in for much of the race. A lot of drivers taking the opportunity to pit here despite the quick yellow.
Yeah, a lot of drivers do want to come in, and some of them from the back of the pack, just opting to pit anyways. But when it comes to your race leaders, that a shorter run in this case, they all didn't want to immediately follow back down, as it was quite simply the runoff into turn one. Again, previously they pitted after having just a 4-lap stint. So there is a line at some point between when you really need to come down to the pit lane and when you do not. Of course, Frinage, who took that little bit of nick of damage, he's got a torn up right front, opting not to come down to the pit lane. The whole nose of that race car is actually showing some damage. You're looking at Kyle Kamer in front of him right now. Kamer was in front of the incident, so he was able to get away pretty scot-free. So I think a lot of the drivers headed down to the pit lane to maybe for damage repair. We saw McBride pit. He was going to get the EOL anyways, so he figured he might as well give up the track position and get some tires in the process.
Yeah, he's got significant damage in regardless at this point. So at this point, take the repairs. It's early on. I'm surprised Frinage, though, was trying to gamble at this point with that damage on the front end. We'll see what type of speed he's got in the car with that amount of aero damage on that front end. But the top two have yet to pit. They're the only ones not to come down at least one time, Kamer and Terrell. This is going to make it, again, an interesting start once more. The bottom line, again, the preferred line on these restarts, 7, because of that tire spin.
And I think that if Frinage does not win this race, that we'll have to look back at that incident as the turning point, because even though he had been sucking back in traffic, you look at the practice times, he was at the top, by 5/1000ths over Nieto, but out-qualified Eberhardt by over a tenth of a second. I mean, we just don't see that. I think he had the best car, and now we'll see if even with the damage he still has the best car or not, as this restart gets set to put 150 laps in the books behind us. And we'll see if these drivers can figure out that tricky outside line. We had kind of talked about the tire spin. There wasn't a ton of it. I think it was just a better start for the inside line, with the problems that still initiated from that top side down into 1 and 2. There's been contact down there on every single drop of the green flag so far this evening. So let's keep an eye on that to see if we go 3-for on this second restart attempt of the evening. Pace car gonna dive down and in. Let's see what Bobby Terrell's got for him. Down low, second time in control, just as good. Green flag in the air, and he's got Frinage hot on his tail. The 88 car trying for second.
That was the best start we've had so far. Everyone getting through pretty cleanly, but that 88, even with the damage, already to the bottom side.
Side by side for the race lead down into turn 3. This is the inside line now that he used to hold off a challenge from Eberhardt earlier, and this time he'll use it to go to the lead. Andrew Frinage back to the point, and now the 8 car is spinning. Kamer is sideways. He'll hang on. We'll go 3 wide to try to avoid an incident, and somehow still good.
Yeah, he drove it straight into the outside wall on corner entry. That's where that right front damage came from. Just an absolutely huge smack to the wall, trying to follow on behind. He'd only missed the bottom in turns 3 and 4, and just messed up the entry. It's so difficult to enter the corner there. You see him just smack that concrete so hard that it nearly spins him around.
Yeah, there are kind of segments. There's the replay there, and you can see how they went 3 wide to avoid an incident. If you look at the racetrack from straight over top, it's not a very gradual quarter entry. There is a very sharp point there, almost like you turn off of a kink by the start-finish line, and then there's another kink, and it's a kind of an awkward quarter entry there, almost closer to something like a Charlotte or a Texas, and he just misjudged it, got into the fence. You see Andrew Friedage enjoying the clean air out front as we fight for 6th position on track. Eric Stanford and Sam Nieto doing battle at a 19 and the 2 cars. And you can see it was Nieto inside who completed that pass off of turn 4.
And I think Stanford just hit that same section of the wall that Kamer just did. He hit the wall hard on the corner entry as they fight on behind. Already Kamer's got himself up inside the top 10 once again, but it's basically, if you can make sure you stick to the bottom, you have the preferred line. But again, it's difficult to stay on that yellow line with the bumps and how much speed you need to carry while also trying to reduce yourself to get into the corner without running into a car ahead or getting loose.
That shot on the nose of the race car right there is a good way to show you just how bumpy it is as you're on board with the 8 of Kyle Kamer down into 3. You can see the race car rocking around. You can see the tail end of the 51 division of Bobby Krug in front of him, trying to step out at every possible chance. But Kamer's going to be under fire here. Here comes the 12 of Ross Cato. He'll go to the bottom. This fight for 10th on track. And the 8 car, not much of a defense on the outside there. Curious if that damage is hurting Kamer here. And if it is, he's got a whole slew of cars stacked up behind him. Joshua Baird, Steve Cunningham just got loosened up by Chambliss even further down the road. There's that 25 car bobbling in the center. And that'll open it up. That's the 30 on the bottom of him. That's Michael Kaczynski.
Yeah, this is getting absolutely crazy to say the least as Chambliss getting tight this time off the corner exit. As you can tell, even with that run down the back straightaway, I think you still want to stay on that yellow line. And it's being proven today by most of the cars because those bumps, again, just carry you up the track if you're up there in turn 3. And it ends up missing the corner and you have to slow down so much that it messes up your corner. He had been on the move before that pass. Now he's going to get the work done again. Chambliss has, if you look up the road.
They'll continue to try to figure this thing out and march through the field here. Of course, a little bit of things settling out now that we've gotten into this green flag run. The only drivers out of this race driver, actually Daniel Epperhart just now going to behind the wall. So he'll join Kalis as the DNFs early here from the rock. Side-by-side challenge. Krug on the outside, and it's Cato on the bottom, continuing this march to the front. He'll get on through. Kamer roughs him up a little bit, but also completes the pass. And Bobby Krug right there just got bullied out of 2 spots.
I don't think Krug was intentionally hit right there. I think the bumps just carried Kamer right up into his door, essentially. Well, taking our look here, it looks like here, and you'll see Krug had already been involved with one incident in this race today. Had been starting to lose some position, but again, lost that bottom line. That loses him the spot to the 12th. And Kamer, you see him actually hit the apron to bump himself up the racing up into the 51. And that is how Krug lost 2 positions, just like that.
So, of course, that's going to hurt him. He had actually been making some pretty good progress. He was one of the drivers that we had been talking about going forwards, and he'll try to have to hit the reset button and go back at it. A little bit of a fight for second. You saw that. Terrell into Washington. Not quite yet, but a car length separate them. Looking at Scott McClendon here up on the O2 machine at Trevor Balderrama. You can see all the right-hand damage on that car. He'll put it the apron to give that preferred line to the race leaders off the quarter. Justin, he got that right side damage from smacking the wall way back a couple of laps ago. That's why that race car is limping around, and 5 laps down is what is the result of that.
And I think he just did it yet again, so that car at this point definitely hurting in terms of handle. He might have knocked the toe out of it potentially. So that 0-2 definitely going to have a problem as the fight is on for P2.
And it's going to be Washington to the inside of Bobby Terrell. And as we've seen many a times already this season, the 4 car not going to waste his energy trying to fight back. simply just keep on the outside on corner entry, give that spot away. Bobby Terrell, a very methodical driver, not normally can really fight you tooth and nail for a spot unless he feels like it is absolutely necessary. So that means Anani Washington strolls into second. It didn't look like it held them up much, but in the last 2 laps, these cars have lost a half a second to Freenage. So we were really concerned that the damage on that car was going to be hurting him. Not the case. He's over 1.5 seconds, or 1.2 seconds, I guess I should say, in front for the number 1 spot.
Yeah, for Andrew, I think it comes down to, again, the driving ability. It's going to even out the speed a little bit, I think, down the straightaways. But he does have the clean air, which is the major advantage compared to some of the other cars. Compare that to Sam Nieto, who was second in the practice charts. He's dealing with aero damage on the left front specifically from that rough start. It's going to take him some time to get back going. He was the fastest car last time by on the track, though, trying to reel in that 22.
It was a 23.908 for Washington. So, he's right there on a pace with McClendon. So those are 2 drivers, that are, trying to pick up some spots. McClendon's got a big bubble here, though, till he can get to Gidman. Nearly that 2 whole seconds as noted. If he's going to be able to get up to P4, Sam Nieto, you can see the 2 car in the background there, kind of stalking and following him as well. But, aside from kind of a gaggle of cars from 16th through 19th or so, things have kind of spaced out a little bit here in this race. There is some fun in the back of the pack it out. Look like Brian Chambliss, Michael Kaczynski, 14th and 15th spot. There it is, with the 25 on the bottom. Even with all that rear end damage, he still wants to fight in this fight right here for P14.
Yeah, and that's going to be affecting a bit of the downforce and aerodynamics again on Chambliss's car, but I think he's feeling comfortable until the racing line. It's just a matter of holding on to the position because everybody's hungry to get back by him if he makes a mistake. He's running about a quarter to half a lane higher up than the yellow line and struggling on corner exit. That's what's killing him at the moment and why he's under such fire for 14th.
And this is a whole pack of cars. All the drivers tucked in line here behind are a part of this fight. Joshua Baird, that's the 23. The 10 of Steve Durham. Even a 66 of Jonathan Lawrence. They're all lined up here. All 5 cars for position. Here comes Baird down to the inside as Kaczynski was unable to hold off the 25. He's really struggling now. Down the back straightaway. A huge bobble from the 30 is going to cost him a spot to Baird and to Durham. So 3 spots lost for Kaczynski, 1 trip around.
He actually scraped the wall a little bit down the back straightaway as well, added a bit of right front aero damage to that car, so he's really struggling with the turning all of a sudden. In the 25-second bracket at the moment, the leaders are still in the 24-1s at the moment.
That is just the insane consistency when you talk about the cars up at the front of the field. You can get within 0.2 of a second, 0.3 of a second of an Andrew Freenage to David Washington. If it wasn't, for the troubles earlier, Daniel Eberhard hot lap, that's one thing. But certainly that consistency over the course of a run is really, I guess what I should say is really what it's going to get you. Also, we were talking about the issues for the O2 at Trevor Balderrama. He's brought that car behind the wall, so his night's going to be done. He'll join Eberhardt and Kalist as the DNFs. Everybody else, though, still on track, was still on the lead lap. Gael Brooks just got lapped by Freenage. There he is in the 71 car as you watch David Washington P2 now cycle up to the back of him. Not a good night out for the 71.
Yeah, it's been a rough one, unfortunately, for him at this point, running 25.5s at the moment on the racetrack. Don't forget about Rick McBride, though. He's +6 overall in the race. And remember, he was one of the drivers who initially stayed out, had contact to the front bumper, got the repairs done on his machine. He's now in 11th position, trying to run away from Krug, from Cunningham, from Chambliss and co. It's been a decent recovery so far for Rhett McBride to get away from drivers such as these you see on your screen.
And you're just going to be in the thick of things all night long. Dealing with all of this traffic is part of the rock. We kind of alluded to it at the start of the broadcast. Not only would lap traffic be a thing, but as well, the racetrack itself ain't that wide. And you can see Durham was looking to the inside of right there on the inside of Chambliss. So this would be a side-by-side battle, 14th and 15th spot. Sure, let's go at it. He'll go to the bottom, down in 1 and 2, and take that spot away. So the Aegis car takes the +1. Baird tries to follow up, and that's the second time in a row we've seen Joshua Baird try to kind of follow up on somebody else's move. Wasn't able to clear him that time, though, so that battle will continue.
I'm almost wondering with that back end damage on the 25 machine that he might have a little bit of engine damage. That is a possibility with that part of the back bumper and the amount of contact, because that's where the fuel tank is, and the fuel cell and the pickup. So there's the chance that he is down a bit on that speed in terms of top end speed for the rest of this race. But Nieto and McClendon, they're off to fighting. It's separated by just a couple tenths now.
Yeah, we'll see if this wants to heat back up. They have been unable to get away from each other in this battle for P5 and 6. And, McClendon's disadvantage, I think I'd mentioned it, it was about 2 seconds up to get him in. That's now closer to 3. So maybe that's kind of where you draw the line, is these cars fifth on back about 1/10 to 2/10 per lap slower, than those cars at least inside of the top 4. So this may be what McClendon's going to be dealing with for the rest of the evening. You do have behind them, of course, Stanford, Cadell, and Cato. And I wanted to mention those last two because, well, they've been pretty quiet, but that's been a good thing. Jonathan Cadell started 18th position. There he is there in the number 69 car. He's up to P8, so that's +10. And Ross Cato started 21st. He's in 9th right behind him. And we've seen that 12 car on the move. That's a +12 for him as well.
And they're running in the ballpark actually as the race leaders at the moment in terms of lap times, now in the 24.3. So it's been very consistent for a lot of these drivers. They're in a good rhythm, and they're keeping things nice and strong. And the interesting thing is, Bobby Terrell, despite that 5-lap difference on the tires, he's been matching that same pace, if not quicker, than both Washington and Freenosh off and on for the past 5-10 laps. So the tires have equalized for the Ford machine, and that's a good thing for him to be able to keep himself up the running order. That gamble seems to have worked out to get him inside the top 3.
It certainly has, and I would say that that is certainly paid off, and now we'll see if it can continue through the long run, because it did caution. This thing gets green, it can start to fly by real fast, and just a handful of laps away from going 1/3 of the way through this 150-lap contest. Justin, haven't yet talked much about fuel. What's our current fuel situation as we work lap now number 48?
It's an interesting track in terms of fuel. It's about 55 laps, give or take, minimum. But here's the thing. The reason I say minimum is it's a track that eats up a lot of tires. Take Andrew Freenosh. We know that he runs those full race stints every single practice session. He didn't go past that 55 lap mark and went for essentially a 2-stopper in his test race. So I can see a lot of drivers trying either the 1-stopper or the 2-stopper. And with it being a short track and the amount of laps and mileage, would be surprised for drivers to be able to get to the halfway point on fuel if they can do so. I've seen drivers in the past and cars in the past here get up to nearly 80 to 90 laps of the run.
And if they could get, of course, to that halfway point, that would get them within inside the window of that larger, run to the end of this race. And right now, Andrew Freenosh is 1/3 distance, 50. So to make things a little bit simpler, 100 laps to go in this race. If you could get another 25, 30 out of it, and with the pace that these cars up front are maintaining, would not be shocked if they actually push it a little bit longer than some of the cars back in the pack. They're still down in the 24s, up at the front of the field, whereas mid-pack, you're closer to the high 24s or 25-second range. Also, the race leaders have been having to deal with a lot of traffic recently. Next up, Chambliss. That's not for position. That's your race leader on the bottom. And position number 14, Chambliss up top. He gave away the preferred line to let him go. Freenosh has now lapped 5 cars, and that's probably been almost in the entire, last 5 or 10 laps or so. So now they're going to start to blend into things, and it ain't going to get any easier to navigate.
Yeah, you can see a lot of the traffic's being very cordial, moving off of the bottom line and letting the leaders go. But here's the thing, it's also a difficult track where you need to make sure you get it just right. Right now, Joshua Baird, he's in the middle of a position battle. You have to make sure you don't lose too much time. That amount of time lost for Baird, for example, 3-4 car lengths to left by Washington. So you need to take it carefully and do it the right way. If you try and force it, that's where you have potential trouble.
And just watching some of these other, groups of cars, I mean, Stanford and McBride still battling for what is 10th and 11th position. Quite the downfall it has been for McBride after we saw him up towards the front of the field cause an incident and therefore claimed responsibility for it. Actually didn't get the EOL because he was on the pit lane at the time of the restart. So he dropped all the way to the back anyway. So he's in fact trying to make some time up in this race. You see David Washington and got a pretty sizable advantage over Bobby Terrell. The 4 car is the car in third. Again, not that one in the middle. That 25 is that lapped car Chambliss that we just mentioned. So don't worry about him for position. But, there's enough space between him to not be that worried. Galen Gidman's about 0.6 of a second off from Bobby Terrell for third and fourth position, which isn't all that bad. And then you got a big jump back to Sam Nieto, P6. A huge jump, Nieto to Cadell. And, we'll kind of update you on it where everybody's running in about 20 laps from now. And we take a look top to bottom at RealSR TV midway race break. But my concern was Justin seeing some of those earlier incidents right off the get-go. As here's the 4 Terrell, who now also getting around the lap traffic in the 25 car. Was that we were going to have a lot of that stop and start early. And listen, it's still possible. You get one yellow, and the age-old saying that cautions breed cautions. But for how difficult and as well how unfamiliar of a racetrack this is, I think everybody's doing really good, because we'll talk to some of the guys in their post-race interviews and say, we're going to so-and-so racetrack, and they'll say, well, I really haven't practiced there. Well, that's fine, but if you really haven't practiced at a Phoenix, you've been there before. If you haven't practiced at Rockingham, you may not have ever driven a B car on Rockingham on the surface. So all these things that drivers are trying to learn.
Yeah, you don't have those past reference points for some of these cars and for some of the tracks specifically. This is one where you don't go there very often, maybe once at the year at the very most on the iRacing service. And and you have that practice time. That's about it. You can take some testing time, get around the racetrack, learn how the fixed setup works. But that's really about it. That's what all the drivers have had to do to get themselves ready for the racing lines and prepare themselves for this week. But it's been a very, very good long run, to say the very least. Everyone keeping it nice and clean. That's the main thing. A lot of the drivers who had problems before are doing much better in terms of practice, in terms of the race now compared to practice, I should rather say. So it's a very clean one today for the Rock.
And we'll see if this is going to continue to string out now at lap number 60 of 150. Just continuing to monitor some of the battles on the racetrack. Cato and Kamer not all that far apart. That would be back in 8th and 9th position. You see it here, led by the 12 of Cato. Kamer scored 9th, and Rent McBride in P10. So it was kind of a 2-horse race, but Kamer has slipped back to these guys to the point that Cato was able to pass him. And now it looks like the 5 of McBride, I thought he had it that time. Had a good look to the inside, but opted not to drive it in. That move coming, I think, shortly from that Amsoil entry.
Yeah, I think it's going to be coming in pretty quick, especially if Kamer keeps on having a bobble just like that. That's what's slowing up drivers such as him at this moment. That arrow really affecting him on the entry. Here comes McBride for the pass.
He'll go to the inside. He's going to make the move down into turn number 1. And you can see the 88 machine really not all that worried about pinching him down and really try to make it a headache. He simply just sticks up top of the outside and almost lets him go on through. So because of that, nice and easy, McBride now up into the 9th spot, and right on Cato. It was a slow lap around for the 12 car. Here's the move to the inside. So a challenge now all the way up for P8, and the 5 car has got it. Not bad for Rhett McBride. 2 passes in 2 laps.
Yeah, I think Cato actually had to check up for Bobby Krug a little bit. Krug was taking a little bit of a lower line in the middle part of the racetrack in turn 3 and 4. That's what slowed up Cato a little bit. And McBride, remember, has been more aggressive on corner entry, trying to trail brake a little bit and then carry more speed for apex off. that's what I think is helping him pull away now and keep this position.
Yeah, we'll see if he is going to be able to keep it. I think that's going to be the big question. With how many laps he and Kato kind of ran in tandem with each other to just get that move and kind of catch the 12 car off guard. I don't know if the 12 is necessarily going to fade away, but if you can at least maintain what's a pretty healthy, 7 or 8 car length advantage now, you'll be fine. And I think if I'm Kato at the moment in 9th, I'm more worried about Kamer trying to come back at me than I am at McBride, because the 8 machine had kind of dropped the back to these guys with that right side damage. Had caught the fence off on a run down into turn 1 and has since trickled back into P10 where he sits now. He's being very aggressive here, trying to get back on it. Surprised if he's going to be able to stick with this, though.
Yeah, at this point, I think Kato is starting to fall off a little bit, potentially. He's being very conservative on the entry of turn 3 specifically, and that's where the drivers around him are gaining their time. It's just that Kamer just can't get the corner exit to be able to match back up and get this position. So it's going to be a bit of patience. It's going to take multiple laps to set up potential passes here today, especially in these situations on the long run. So it's just a matter of time before we see Kamer try and go to the inside. By the way, McBride has already reeled in Jonathan Goodell for 7th.
He has been able to get up on him. This 5 car has been on a tear, mid 40 or 24, I guess I should say, second range lap times. And the 12 car is down into the fence. Kato smacked the wall there. So the 12's in the fence. Close call with Cadell there. As all of this happening on the back straightaway, Cadell went wide, hit the fence. McBride got into him at the same time. Kato was in the wall behind them.
Yeah, that's teammate contact there, in fact, right there. Cadell slowed up. I don't think McBride was expecting it there. And as Cadell trying to get out of the way, he ends up hitting the right rear. Take a look at this. Cadell gets a bit tight, gets off the gas to avoid the wall, and right there, boom. That adds contact once again to both those cars. It's a bit of damage. McBride is on through regardless to get to 7th spot. Still has to gain 9 seconds to get to the next position, but that was as Kato was going on behind with this incident.
And that was a pretty hard hit. Here's the Kato incident. It's all on his own. You can see he's behind the battle. And the race cars, they run right now through what is turn number 2. All fine there. So it'll actually be the next strip by, I believe, as you see Kamer in front. This happened kind of back-to-back. We'd just been talking about Kato and, how he would hang out in his fight for position. And as he makes the run off down into 1, I believe this may be where he found himself off and in some trouble as that race car gets a little bit sideways there. Still not quite that time by, but he was off and into the fence in turn 2 at roughly the same time that an incident was happening in front of him. Pretty quick catch, though. He doesn't actually lose anything. He'll actually stay P10 back on the live feed. But P10, again, still way up from where he started, but a damaged race car, not as bad as Cadell and McBride ended up.
And the lead has gone down very quickly at the end of the run. Some of the damage might be factored in, as well as the end of the run speed. Freenach already into the 25-second bracket, while Washington still running 24.9s right at the very edge of the window. We just seen Sam Nieto come into pit. This is going to be potentially an intense battle. No, Freenach lets him go.
He's going to let him go on through. So late in the run, it is David Washington back to the race lead here from Rockingham. Washington, who, so many times this season has, been really hit or miss. Hasn't run a full schedule, has only started 5 races this year, and in those 5 only has 1 top 5 finish. That was also his only top 10 finish of the year. I mean, he's either right in the thick of things or not, but this is not over yet because Bobby Terrell here as well in 3rd to make this a fight for 2nd. Galen Gidman in 4th, also closing in. So Ferdinand really struggling, and he'll come to pit road right on the money at halfway home, and Gidman's going to follow him in.
And just barely got to the 40-mile-an-hour pit road speed limit here at the Rock. So that was actually a good move, I think, for Gidman, because he gained a lot of time up on the 88 machine by diving in harder and closing up to the back end of Freenach. So if he cycles out right and keeps himself up to a decent pace, he might be in the mix for the race lead.
Let's see if he's able to do so. Both cars into the box. Audi Ford in earlier. No doubt the call's going to be for 4 tires and fuel. I don't think Ferdinand can afford to spend any time on the pit lane for repairs. He definitely has optional repairs. Turning the front of that race car fixed up. As the 98 and the 4 are down to pit road, Ferdinand is off and is ahead of Gidman as those two cars blend out on track. A big bobble on the apron, though. Ferdinand threw a ton of time away off of pit road on the apron inside of 1 and 2, but it is not going to be enough for Gidman to get to him.
You see those black specks that are on the apron? Those are the marbles, and that's the reason Ferdinand got loose off the pit exit. It is very dirty at that part of the racetrack at the moment, which can make it very difficult to exit pit road. But because of even the 1-lap undercut, they just passed by Washington and Terrell by a large margin. You see them just right there. They're side by side just about with Kamer off the pit lane.
That 1 lap was a big difference. Andrew Ferdinand, the lap time that he put down right before coming to pit road was a 25.4. He is really starting to struggle, and now we'll see the first lap time he puts down back on track, a 23.8. So you're looking at about a 1.5 seconds of difference. That's why that undercut put them in front, is that 1 lap difference of the fresh rubber.
Yeah, and we've seen, for an example, when it came to that number 4 machine of Bobby Terrell, that if you execute the right way, you're able to equalize pretty quickly. The 1 lap difference today seems to not be end-all be-all, so this might be a great chance for Ferdinand to hold on to the net lead, as he's already caught himself up to the 5 of Rhett McBride to try and get himself past for what is the 2nd place car at the moment.
Yeah, the 5 cars still not down to pit road, so that wasn't 4 position. Ferdinand is a lap down, so this is kind of what Scott McClendon's banking on. Is the yellow down would trap a ton of fast race cars a lap down. He'd be able to pit, and it would just be he, McBride, Kamer, Cadell, and Durham, who still sit on the lead lap right now. They are still well within their fuel window. Nobody said that they had to pit right at 75. In fact, Justin, I think 75, as you mentioned, I mean, would be the absolute maximum end of the fuel run. So if all these cars who pitted right on that money at halfway home are wanting to go the distance, the race car is going to be awful for the final 25.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you're able to stretch to, say, lap 90, which is technically the very, very, very tip at the most here at the Rock based on past historical data, you're going to have the freshest tires on the racetrack. You sacrificed a lot of time now. However, you'll be at least 3 to 6 tenths quicker potentially throughout the rest of the run. It's about, though, executing it. At the same time, you also don't know if there's going to be trouble on the racetrack that will end up throwing things into a bind and put you in a great situation, because a lot of the drivers that are lapped down right now, who have already taken their pit stops, I should rather say, it's not a good situation to take the wave around. Let's just say that.
And all of this, likely hearsay, if it could all cycle through. Now only 4 cars still on the lead lap. And they got, as you mentioned, if it is at about lap 90, you got maybe 5 laps until you are going to have to come down to the pit lane. So we'll wait till all of this cycles through before we take a look at the midway race break. Right now, 4 cars on the lead lap, and Scott McClendon is in from the race lead. We'll hand things over to the 5 of Rhett McBride. Maybe E. Kamer Cadell out on track. Cunningham has fallen a lap down, but with the 22 in, here comes a whole slew of cars back to the lead lap.
This is going to help a lot of the drivers here, to say the very least. As you take a look at Cunningham, he's already put the hand out the window. And a bit of a rough pit entry. Some of the drivers have actually been very conservative going in on the entrance of turn 3 instead of all the way into turn 4 exit. An interesting call, to say the least, by some of the drivers to take it that conservatively with this tough pit road entry.
Yeah, I noticed a couple of drivers struggling on exit as well, but certainly entry is another place on green flag pit stops where you can either make up a ton of time or throw away a ton of time. Either are just as easy. Almost now completely cycled through with this current picture. Looks like still those top 3 yet to pit, so it would be 4th on the back, actively on track. That are all the cars who have pitted. Gidman, Ferdinand, we were talking about those drivers, and how they had separated themselves, earlier in this race. But Freenage, I should say, when he got out of the pit lane, came out pretty close with that 94. He's since spread himself out quite a ways. He's about a second and a half ahead of him. So no real concern there. Washington, Nieto, even still further behind. So when Freenage really looked like that this may have been a moment where he was going to stutter and falter, and he was getting really teamed up on by everybody in the top 5. I mean, 4 cars closed in on him all at once. For all of that, not that bad at this point after the pit cycle.
Yeah, I'm still a bit surprised in how well he's done today, despite some of that damage on the race car. But it seems to still affect him a little bit, but not so much to where it ends up being an end-all be-all type of situation. It's I can deal with this. I can deal with the temperatures. I can just gonna focus and not panic. And that's exactly what he's done. He hasn't panicked, and he's driven this race as we've seen him do many times in RealSimRacing competition. Like one of the elite drivers, if not the best driver in the history of RSR competition.
Just looking, some other drivers have dropped out of this race. Michael Kaczynski, Eric Stanford, and Gael Brooks appear to all be out of this. Only Brooks is not in the garage, but he's on the pit lane and kind of stationary at the moment. As you can see, Freenage now on the back of Cato there. Looking back at the 2 of Sam Nieto. He, Bobby Terrell, duking it out right now for what is 7th and 8th on the racetrack. And with all of the lapped cars mixed into the thick of things, this is for position for P7. And about a second difference up to Washington on his own P5 as another car dives to pit road.
That basically leaves Rhett McBride as the only car yet to hit in this cycle. And you got to remember, he had to come down for the damage repair as a part of the second caution flag. So he's essentially on 10 lap more fuel than the rest of the field. So as they fight up on screen, strategy still up in hand.
And this is really stringing to the very, very late in this race. Of course, closed it in now on 50 laps to go. In the home stretch. And, for somebody like a McBride who continues to push this one out, I mean, he's been running, I believe, Justin, since we went back green, which would have been way back on lap 14. Correct me if I'm wrong?
Yeah, about that point, yes. So it's been a longer stint. He's only about a second a lap off the pace compared to Freenage, Gidman, and Washington in terms of the fresher tires. He's done very stellar this run and was one of the fastest cars at the beginning of this pit window. But it looks like he's reached the end of the fuel stint. His hands out the window, gonna be coming this time by.
And here it is. He will decide. That's almost basically right at 81 laps since we went back green. McBride is in. Again, he topped off before the restart because it was the cause of the caution. That's why he had more fuel than anybody else. He's down pit road. He'll be able to go the distance. And once more, the ship has been righted, and Andrew Freenage is in front once more here from Rockingham. So I know it's way late, but let's look top to bottom at your LSR TV midway race break and take a look at the running order. There it is for Andrew Freenage. Started this race from pole and looked like he had been way out in front. Got a little bit iffy at the start of the pit cycle, but he is your race leader. He's got a 1.1 second lead atop of Galen Gidman, who pitted with him on the same lap. Both of those cars gained time on David Washington, who's in third. He is 3.6 seconds off the race lead, also running, you see, in the current position where he started. Behind him, Bobby Terrell is fourth, who stays in front of Sam Nieto. We were watching those two a little bit ago. Nieto's P5, and then Scott McClendon in sixth is actually the final car right now on the lead lap. Cato, one lap down, is P7. Rhett McBride cycles back into traffic, into the brake position. Steve Durham is ninth, and Kyle Kamer rounds out the top 10.
Jonathan Candell was also able to stretch it on the fuel. He's in P number 11. 2 laps down, however. He's right behind David Washington on track. Joshua Bayer's in 12th position, with Steve Cunningham, the last driver, 2 laps down, in P13 trying to reel down P12. Bobby Krug is 3 laps down in 14th, with Brian Chambliss with him on that cycle in 15th position. Jonathan Lawrence is the last car running on the track, 3 laps down in 16th spot. So far, these are the drivers in the garage area: Eric Stanford, Kyle Brooks, Michael Kaczynski, Trevin Valderrama, along with Daniel Everhart and Sean Kalis in this field.
Let's look at the bottom at your LSR TV midway race break. A lot of those drivers at the back, interestingly enough, out of this race, more so from single car incidents. The second incident of the race did have some collateral damage, but for the most part, if you're beat up, you were either directly in one of our 2 yellows, or you just smacked the wall and kind of messed up your own race, and that's why you may be multiple laps down or out of it. 16 cars still active on the racetrack in this NPHY.org 150. That time by 2/3 of the way home inside of the final 50. And of course, we talk about that run to the end with Fernandez and Gidman both makes it easy when they came in together, trusted pitting right at the cross flags at lap 75. Thought that they were already struggling to what at that point had been about a 60-lap run, and when Fernandez really fell off, he's gonna have to go 15 laps longer. So he needs to really make a concerted effort, if it was that car really falling away from him, to take it easier this time. Again, because if you struggled on 60, 75 ain't gonna be any easier.
Yeah, this could be nerve-wracking, to say the very least. He's got a bit of a gap. That's one of the main things. It's just a matter of maintaining it and hoping that you don't get held up in traffic, because if you end up losing any sorts of time, that can end up being your race right there. So it's just about hitting your marks, trying to conserve, and trying to make sure that you don't get held up in any way or make mistakes.
And now it's just a matter of, trying to optimize every single time around.
Yep.
Listen, this is not a strange place for Andrew Fernandez to be in the race lead at a comfy margin of 1.8 seconds. So he knows how to close these things out. And, the kind of thing that stood out to us when he was kind of upset last week in the race at Auto Club Speedway when Daniel Everhart snapped that 5-race win streak that he had going, is that it wasn't maybe how I thought Fernandez's streak would have ended. I thought maybe it would be a race where he was dominant and, you get a bad yellow and a pit strategy, or you get a late race yellow and you got a restart. That was not the case. This one came down to just other cars being better late in the run, which is something that we have not really seen at all with this 88. So we'll continue to watch that and see if maybe those late run gremlins could come back. But in the meantime, Bobby Terrell on charge from 4th. He's trying to reel in David Washington.
Yeah, right now Washington in a bit of the draft right now. Jonathan Caddell on those fresher tires that the 69 machine has, but Bobby Terrell's definitely hitting his marks very well. He's able to handle the corner exits a bit more smoothly compared to the UPS machine. So, as well as taking it a little bit more deeper, Bobby Terrell is at the moment, and it's been working. We've seen that with Rick McBride with how he took the corners. We're seeing it now with Bobby Terrell in this run with the deeper entry, being able to hold on to the speed and then exit off the corner well. That's allowing him to reel back in the position in front.
And we've seen actually an interesting number of these battles that have happened inside of the top 5 tonight not really be that thrilling, and maybe it's because on a caution flag at lap 108. We are not done yet. Spinner on the back straightaway. It's Kyle Kamer.
And we mentioned the importance of getting through traffic cleanly. Well, Kyle Kamer unfortunately got into a cluster of drivers. He ended up getting contact with the 86, I should rather say, of Steve Cunningham off the corner. Ends up coming up. Cunningham's away from the wall by a quarter of a car length, and that's what causes the caution flag, and this changes everything.
Just as I had about to say that this race had seen a lot of drivers kind of mutually part ways in some of these battles, it is that contact with traffic that turns Kamer around. He and Cunningham get together. We will pit with only 6 cars left at a lead lap, and this takes any of that, late run anxiety out of it, because we're going to get fresh rubber inside of 40 to go. Expect all of your race leaders to come in. Well, there'll probably be a slew of cars staying out, trying to get laps back.
Yeah, right now, this is going to hurt drivers like Rhett McBride, who just didn't reach Ross Cato quite yet with the time of the caution flag. Steve Durham, Jonathan Goodell, all kinds of those drivers, either 1 lap down or 2 laps down now, who were trying to stretch the tires. Now, that strategy out the window, and essentially it's a 7-horse race for drivers on the lead lap at the time of the caution flag.
And I think that as this will show, and maybe it's, kind of karma for talking about Freenage probably, having some of those close scares with the late race yellows. This is a whole new thing. You can see the race off of the pit lane that Ani 4 tried, but no surprise. Freenage is first off, Gidman second, Washington third, Terrell fourth. McClendon ends up there for 5th because Sam Nieto is going to spend some elongated time on pit road. He'll give up track position to try to get some damage repaired, I think.
Yeah, he's got fender damage on both sides of the race car. He did get held up by some of the traffic in one of the position battles before the pit stop. So at this point, I don't blame him. There's only a few cars on the lead lap. May as well get the damage repaired. Get the car as fast as you can for this final run, because now this is where the short run pace that we've seen from Freenage definitely comes into play, where he was a little bit quicker despite his damage compared to part of the field. It's the matter, though, of will that be the case now in this final stint? That remains to be seen.
Nieto does get off the pit lane just as your leaders were coming around, so he's trying to get as much time down in the box as possible for damage repair. McBride will end up back on the lead lap, I believe, as this cycles through. It looks like Nieto also trying to catch back up. Wave buys may go to Goodell. Also, we'll have to wait till the lights go out on top of the pace car to get a surefire number on how everybody's going to react. But this is no longer that conserve your race car to the end moment. I mean, you could push pretty hard, Justin, especially for the race leaders. They've been pretty good at keeping those speeds up through the better half of the first, half of a run or whatever it may be. So a restart that may be just above 35 to go. I don't expect a lot of saving and conserving.
I don't expect that either, but at the same time, it's going to be interesting how the restart actually handles itself, because remember, they have been pretty dicey on 2 of the 3 we've had so far today, including the initial start. So if there's any tire spin now, these drivers haven't been on colder tires in a long while for a restart. That could be a concern. On the bright side, there's a lot of rubber down on the racetrack, so the amount of fall off this run through this 37 laps or so, not going to be as drastic as compared to the start of the event.
Let's see how this one shakes up. Restarts have been a little bit iffy all night long, and this one may come for all the marbles as we get set for a restart inside of 40 laps to go here from Rockingham Speedway. It is Freenage, Gidman on the front row, and David Washington inside of row 2 third. A good challenge as well in an Audi 8 machine. Green flag back in the air, a little bit of a bobble. Gonna mean Freenage has got some car lengths down into 1.
McClendon that time had a bit of wheel spin, it looks like. Nearly bobbled to the left, but Gidman already losing spots from that top line restart. Already dropping to 3rd position as everyone's off to the yellow line.
And they'll all drop down to the very inside. These first few laps going to be ever so critical. And in fact, all of the race lead cars, as you can see, have single filed out. A lot of the side-by-sides kind of in that middle group with some lapped cars. But everybody, so far, so good. Washington had initially gotten a really good start. He followed Freenage on the bumper through 3rd gear, but then eventually did have that little bit of a bobble, maybe when he made that shift up to 3rd and dropped back a bit, but it was still good enough to get ahead of Gidman. So there he is, P2, having to erase that deficit from the green flag pit stop cycle.
And I'm curious to see how Washington does here as the laps continue to turn down here, and how much Freenage is willing to defend, because remember, he was willing to give up the positions before. I don't think you're in that sort of situation as a driver now, to say the very least. He's going to be probably fighting for this race win, trying to get back into his winning ways.
We'll see if this is going to be the breakthrough moment for either Washington or kind of a return to form for Freenage. Not that it was, a bad result in any stretch of the imagination for the 88 the last time out, but he expects to show up and win races every single Monday night. And I have a feeling that for Ferdinand, it might hurt more when he just gets beat on a long green flag run than maybe if he can say he was a victim of circumstances because it was a late race yellow or whatever may have you, that may have been a factor in this one. But it looks like drivers have gotten their legs underneath them as we close in on 30 laps to go, and he's pulling away up front as also Washington gapping Gidman for a 1-2 breakaway.
Here's the thing, remember, this was the same sort of case for the first 10, 15, 20 laps or so, at least for Freenach. The thing is, though, as the run continues, he seems to get clawed back in by the drivers behind him, and that's where some of that difference comes in terms of fall. By the way, P3 and 4 swap positions. Terrell was able to make the pass last time by on Gidman by taking away the inside, so the 94 machine being shuffled towards the back part of the top 5.
Doing everything he can to get into the correct positions and laid in this one. And, with Bobby Terrell in the 4, having up them now, curious if Gidman's going to get back into it. Because, to be honest, it was Ross Cato who was making more moves than Gidman earlier. I know that, Gidman started a top 10 car, so no surprise if he stays there as a fight for the lead is on. With Washington to the inside of Ferdinand. We saw this same battle early in this race, and Ferdinand was able to hold them off on the outside, but it's not going to happen this time through. Bottom is the place to be again, and it is David Washington to the race lead at 122.
Yeah, Freenach got very tight off of turn number 4 with the bumps. And now Washington with the clean air and the clean race car has the chance to come away with the big victory. Now it's the matter of, will this keep on going the way it's going in terms of the race? Will it stay green, or will we see trouble? The fight is back on for third, though, because Gidman has a run.
He's got a big advantage here. All of this has kind of collapsed on itself just as we had thought that it was starting to spread out and kind of settle in just a little bit. You can see the challenge here. Also, McClendon in the 22 car. He has tried so many times tonight to get into a battle with a couple of cars, and oftentimes has been, just one spot too far out to actually make it happen. So we'll see if maybe he can take advantage of this. But it is no longer that 1-2 breakaway by any stretch. The top 5 cars last time through within a second. And look at the 98 car, Washington. He's slow and on the apron. He clipped it on the exit at turn 2, all on his own, and he'll drop all the way to P5.
A big mistake from Washington, and keep an eye on the left side tires, because we mentioned if you hit a bump, or in this case, hit the apron, it will shoot you around loose. That's what happened with Washington. Got on the apron right there. A good save to keep it from hooking towards the right, but loses all the track position. Now, he's going to have to spend the next 25 laps trying to get back up to Freenach & Co.
Really trying to make this up, but that is a disastrous mistake. Here's the on-board shot for Renage. As you'll see, that 98 car was A-okay and pulled a couple of car lengths, was in a very good spot, and it's going to happen right down here. The left side tire's going to dip to the yellow. You can see the slide, and I think he's just lucky that that car wasn't fenced after that little bit of contact. So instead, Washington now a 2.5 seconds behind from P5, and Ferdinand on top once more with the Terrell now the car that wants to try to close from second.
Now it's going to be curious what the drivers in second, third, and fourth can have. We've seen many times Washington be that second place car much of the night, but now this is the chance for Bobby Terrell to break through. We know how good Bobby Terrell is on the long run. We've seen Gidman a few times, but this is one of his best runs the entire season. And McClendon, he's looking to try and get one of his best finishes as well this season as Toyota Supra. So this is going to be an intense battle, I think, in the next 22 laps or so to decide who wins this one.
And we're not surprised that this is the race where some of these drivers who have had those glimpses of, brilliance, really good speed are being able to pull it out, because we've been saying it from the very get-go, Justin. This is a driver's track. It's in your hands to make the difference. And sometimes, you know, a short run like this gives you that ability to be a little bit more aggressive and try to fight this thing out. Freenaj is not getting away from the #1 spot. In fact, the last time by, Terrell was faster than he was with a 23.902. Gidman was faster, so was McClendon. Freenaj was the slowest of the top 4 the last time, as the gap for the race lead is down to 3 car lengths.
And that's where that aero damage is definitely starting to pop up down the straightaways. And already half a car length close from corner exit to corner entry from turn 4 to turn 1. For Freenaj, this is going to have to be one of the hardest races he'll have to defend for all season because of the damage.
And the 88 machine has been able to, for the most part, get away with that front-end damage. He sustained it in the second caution flag of the afternoon where there was contact in front. He wasn't totally collected, but he got that front end beat up. And immediately we thought that that looked like enough damage that it was going to make a difference. He was fine on the short to mid run, but uncharacteristically not good on the long run. He'll have 18 laps to still hold on this time by, with Bobby Terrell swarming from behind.
And don't forget, we've also seen this a few times in a clean car where if he's the leader, he'll try and conserve. It becomes the question too, is he going to be trying to do that at the same time as trying to defend this lead, because he likes to force drivers, say, in this case Terrell, to work and use their equipment up. If he forces them to burn up their tires, he might be able to hold on still.
And that's always been the strategy that, you know, drivers have faltered against with the 88 machine, is that, you know, he's the one that has been so good on the long runs, that has been at times untouchable, that, you know, the mistakes are really the only thing that they could ever really bank on. And now we're in the position where that's what the 4 car is hoping for, is once again trying to pressure the 88. We saw David Washington make a mistake that looks like it is in effect taking him out of this. He may not even be able to get back to McClendon to fight for 4th. He's all on his own P5, probably still reeling from a big slide that probably heated those tires up a ton. So will it be decided between Freenaj and Terrell, or if they get side by side and fight for this at all? Scott McClendon and Galen Gidman right there also still in the picture.
And we've been seeing Terrell as well use a different line compared to the rest of the top 5. He charges hard in turn 1, but he's trying to diamond the corner and ramp it off the banking in turn 2. That's been helping him down the back straightaway. The thing is, though, he's been the slower of the top 2 in 3 and 4. Freenaj has been able to carry more speed on Apex and run away a little bit. So at this point, it's about which part of the track is your preference. Terrell, it's the back stretch. Freenaj, it's the front stretch in this home stretch of the race.
This thing's certainly coming down to the wire. This time by, it'll be 13 laps to go in this NPHY.org 150. There's only going to be 2 races left after tonight in this RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series campaign. Talladega next Monday, and then Phoenix for the finale on Monday, February the 3rd. A week off, and then the 2020 Cup Series will get underway. So for Bobby Terrell, who made a return to this Icebreaker Winter Series for this 2020 campaign, wants so badly to get back into RSR victory lane, this could be one of his last best opportunities if he's only sticking with the B cars.
Yeah, this could be huge right now for Bobby Terrell at this point. He's come close a few times. He's been great on the long run, but now it's his best chance to taste victory. The thing is, though, Freenaj had the better corner apex. Terrell had the better corner exit, heading back down the front stretch.
Good. Looks like a higher line for the 4 car that time at the entry as he tries to kind of cut the exit a little bit, and it looks like it is about a net gain or net loss of 0. Freenaj might have got the fence a little bit that time. Looked like he almost had to pull that race car down and off of the banking. Thought that maybe he was going to break loose and slide. He hangs on. There it is. 10 laps to go from the Rock. They are gaining now, both of them on Gidman from 3rd. An Audi 4 car now 0.8 of a second back. They pulled nearly a second onto McClendon in 4th at the last 2-3 laps alone. So that's a big up for these two to be able to decide it amongst themselves.
This is going to be one of the best fights we've seen this season. At this point, though, if you're Terrell, you have to start trying to find a way to close up right now. The most he's gotten with the aero push has been about 2 to 3 car lengths. He's got to find a way to keep up in 3 and 4. Freenosh is the better of the two in that corner, and each time he smacks down on the gas, he pulls back by a quarter car length. Terrell only gets to about even in that regard and just can't close up to the back bumper yet.
He's just not able to make that little bit extra, and that's where that mistake may have to come into play because, I mean, you can get to within a car length, but unless you're going to send him and give him a shot into the turn, I mean, you need to have enough to get the pass done. A lot of the passes tonight, and I've been making the point right before the most recent and what may end up being the final yellow of the night came out, Justin, that a lot of the time, the battles up front tonight, they haven't really fought over them. They've kind of accepted it, let the car go, played the long game. That's not going to be the case here. I don't think Terrell gets to the inside and it passes him in 2 quarters like it's nothing. I think that Freenosh is going to make him work, and if the 88 can hold the bottom, it's going to be very, very difficult for the 4 to get around the outside.
It's going to come down to if Andrew makes a mistake or if Bobby Terrell gets himself a run down the front straightaway and gets himself to the left rear quarter panel of the 88 machine. He's going to have to force the issue. It's not going to be given to him on a silver platter tonight. It's going to have to come down to how hard can he keep up with the 88? Can he get to the inside with 5 to go?
5 laps to go at the Rock. You still got to get to the white flag for this race to be official. So that will be the first, benchmark that the 88 machine wants to see is for this thing to be 100% official. There is a little bit of lap traffic on the horizon. It is Steve Cunningham. Also, Galen Gidman has started to close back in from 3rd. He has brought his disadvantage back down to just 0.6 of a second. But Terrell, the closest he's been in 5 laps, is only 1 car length off as we look for 3 laps to go.
And Terrell started charging the corner a little bit harder in turn 3. It worked last time. Not so much this time. Freenosh still getting the better exit. Terrell was a bit more conservative on the entry.
He took it easy there, didn't stress things, and I think it paid off better for the 88, certainly on exit. Here comes Terrell again. A huge head of steam down to turn 3, down to half a car length. But again, the exit at this end in 4 is where Freenosh has been better, and he'll work with 2.5 car lengths now with popsicle sticks in the air.
And the traffic may be a factor. 2 lap cars are up the road. One of them within 5 car lengths as a bit of a bubble for Freenosh. Here comes Terrell.
Terrell closes the gap again. Here's the lap traffic to the outside. The race leader is going to be able to work the bottom. Terrell has had a couple of big sprints, but he's going to need to get a lot on Freenosh in one final time. White flag from Rockingham. It's just Freenosh and Terrell. No traffic in front. It's been a spirited drive by the 4 car, but as he drives in, it's going to be 2 car lengths, not enough. And Andrew Freenosh back to victory lane. Win number 6 comes tonight as he gets the checkered at Rockingham.
A heck of a win tonight. And this one he had to work for. He had damage on the race car. He had to deal with multiple drivers charging on the long run. And had to fight with Bobby Terrell all the way to the finish. A stellar win for Andrew Freenosh, with another one to add to his belt this season.
Atlanta, Homestead, Mid-Ohio, Iowa, Chicago, and now Rockingham. And I believe coming out of this race, he may just have enough to already have clinched the championship, if not be so awfully close. What a run for Freenosh, and a tip of the cap to another RSR veteran, and Bobby Terrell gave him a run for his money. Both he and Gidman kept things interesting, but in the end, the damage and that challenge from behind, not enough to stop that 88 car and keep him out of the winner's circle.
Indeed, he had to, again, work for this one. It was a surprising one, a bit, I think, to both of us, a bit to how hard and how well he did despite that front bumper. But my goodness, he was able to execute with perfection in the end when he needed to the most.
He parks it down in victory lane, and that's where we will catch up with him in just a few moments. Before we do so, we'll take a quick opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll go post-race and chat with the top finishers here from Rockingham, North Carolina. You're watching LSR TV's coverage of the RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series. We'll talk with Ferdinand from The Rock when we get back. Welcome back live to LSR TV's continuing coverage of the 2020 RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series, supporting the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth. Back live for post-race action on the iRacing Esports Network as Andrew Ferdinand is the winner in tonight's NPHY.org 150. We'll go trackside and chat with him and the rest of your top finishers in just a moment. First, we look top to bottom at the LSR TV full race results. Ferdinand wins it 2/10 up on Bobby Terrell. Galen Gideon right there with the mix as well. Comes home in third position. We'll talk with them in just a moment. Big jump back then to the likes of Scott McClendon fourth, the David Washington, who rounds out your top five. You've also got Sam Nieto in sixth, Ross Cato seventh, and Rhett McBride eighth, round out the cars who finished on the lead lap. P9 was Steve Durham, and Kyle Kamer rounds out the top 10.
Jonathan Cadell came home in 11th tonight in front of Steve Cunningham, who was 2 laps down, along with Joshua Baird, Brian Chambliss, and Bobby Krug in Ps 12 through 15. Jonathan Lawrence finished 4 laps down in 16th. Kyle Brooks in 17th was the first DNF, with Eric Stanford, Michael Kaczynski, Trevin Valderrama, along with Daniel Eberhardt and Sean Kalis, all did not finish tonight's race.
Look top to bottom at the LSR TV full race results. Tonight's coverage brought to you and in support of the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth. The NPHY is the most comprehensive service provider for the thousands of young people experiencing homelessness in our community, providing access to life-changing services for homeless youth 24 hours a day at virtually every street corner in Southern Nevada. NPHY's wraparound programs stabilize young people's lives, meeting their immediate needs and providing a safe, supportive environment and a path to self-sufficiency. NPHY's individualized, holistic services empower young people to not only achieve long-term independence, but to craft the futures they want for themselves. Go to nphy.org for more information on how you can help and make a difference. Let's go trackside to RealSimRacing Victory Lane, where after 1 week off, Andrew Ferdinand is back and the winner of tonight's NPHY.org 150. And Andrew, I know it feels good to be back, but Bobby gave you a big run for your money after that last restart and the run to the end.
Yeah, that was one of the harder ones. Definitely the way we started. We had 40 seconds of damage the whole race, and we had to lift early to the corners because I had the gauge blinking red at me. I thought it was going to blow up halfway through the race, and it was dealing with that. And we had that late caution. I didn't get it fixed. I probably should have. So it was dealing with that, and then I don't know what happened, but we lost some straightaway speed. And I mean, Bobby and Dave and Galen, they were all a lot quicker than me. So I don't know if we had a clean car what it would have been, but man, that made it a lot of fun to race, and I just love this track. I love turning laps. It's a shame I didn't get to do it with a clean car, but it's definitely a lot of fun tonight.
And that certainly lines up with what we saw late there, where, Bobby would really close in on you on the corners. Mentioned having to lift early and the temps were up. How much time do you think that damage had hindered you? And, maybe if that didn't happen, would it have been a little bit easier at the end?
Yeah, usually I'm a lot better at this track, and it was 40 seconds, so I know when you get that temp in the red a lot, it cuts some horsepower off. So I think that last run we may have been comfortable, but these guys behind me, they're so talented. It's hard to tell. Yeah, I probably could have saved tires a little better or what, but it's hard to tell what ifs. But I'm just glad we were able to win.
Another race win, and you mentioned that this one was a ton of fun for you. We've seen some exciting ones, but Rockingham certainly different than all the others. What did you think about having this one on the calendar and how it actually played out?
This is my favorite track on iRacing, so I was like a kid on Christmas morning to see it on the schedule, and just I'm happy I got to turn laps. I'm really happy I didn't get completely taken out in that wreck, and even with the damaged car, it's just it's so great to have the opportunity to run a track that's they don't run there in real life anymore. So thank you guys for putting on the schedule, and I hope everybody enjoyed the race, so maybe we can get a few more races here. Sponsors,
shout outs, the routine, who makes it happen for you and the team.
I want to say thanks to you guys for putting the broadcast on, everybody at iRacing, everybody over at Aegis. Shout out to Dave. He could have won the last 2 races. I know he just got a little loose there, but that's a real shame. I wouldn't be anywhere near as good without him. And all the drivers, I have not seen a race here with green flag stops. That's crazy, and I'm so proud of everybody in this league for that. And all the fans, I hope we put on a good show for you guys.
Race winner tonight from the Rock, Andrew. We appreciate the time. We appreciate you being in RealSimRacing. Congratulations.
Thanks so much, guys.
Win number 6 in 8 attempts for the driver of the 88 machine, and it was Bobby Terrell who was challenging late in this one, Justin, your track side with our second place finisher.
Yes, indeed, Bobby. How are you feeling coming home second tonight, just behind by under 0.3 of a second?
Not bad. I mean, it was a good race. I mean, it's Rockingham. I mean, I love the track, but I can't complain. I was trying to get Andrew. I got to him a few times, but just couldn't get close enough.
I was about to ask actually about that battle in terms of that. From your perspective, what was the effort like to try and close in first off on Andrew as all that was happening up in front, including David Washington getting loose, and trying to set up the pass? How difficult was that?
Oh, it was difficult. I felt like I was getting off too a little better than him, but he was getting off of 3, 3 and 4 better, or 4 better than me. So, uh, we were just basically swapping lap times, pretty much you could say. I knew I was good on the long run, and of course, uh, I might have had a better chance if it had stayed green all the way, because I felt like on that really long run that I was closing in on them on that 75 lap stretch right there. And I never pitted, and I was still able to hang with them. So I was really happy.
Your thoughts overall, though, on how the racetrack is, because this is a track where you normally don't see the Xfinity cars racing. It's not on the real world schedule anymore. Your thoughts on Rockingham as a whole?
Oh, I love the track. I mean, I think it should be in the schedule more for sure. I don't know why they don't run here more. I mean, it is, I guess, considered a short track, but uh, it's a it's a real fun short track. And I mean, a lot of people, get in trouble off too. So that's where a lot of incidents happen. But I love the track. I mean, just like Andrew loves it, and I mean, I love the track too. It's got a good flow to it. You kind of have to race the track, so I like it a lot.
Next race, though, is one where there's the chance of trouble around any corner. It's Talladega Superspeedway. How are you feeling heading to our second and final Superspeedway race on the calendar?
Well, that's just a crapshoot. I mean, I think that anybody in here can win it. It just comes to staying out of trouble, and being there at the end, and that's what I'm going to try to do.
Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
I'd like to thank you guys for doing this. I know it's a lot of time, a lot of work, and for putting it on and stuff, and your sponsors and all the drivers out there that gave room tonight. I appreciate it.
Congratulations on the second place finish tonight, Bobby. Heck of a run.
Thank you, sir.
That's Bobby Terrell coming home second tonight. The third place finisher tonight was Galen Gidman. It's his best finish this season, a third place run. How are you feeling? This tops your best finish on the calendar, which was previously a top 10, a P number 10 rather, specifically.
I would say relieved, man. This has been, I've really enjoyed racing, but results-wise, this has been a pretty miserable season. So, had a couple of races where I made mistakes. Atlanta, I could have finished top 3. And then I had that embarrassing spin on the restart, and then I was on pace for a good top 10, maybe top 5 last week, and got some damage. But and then bad luck every other week. So it was really good to be able to get a good finish. And I mean, I don't think anybody's anything for Andrew, but it was nice to finish in the vicinity where I feel like I'm capable of many weeks.
Next question is about the race itself. How difficult was it to keep up a consistent pace at a track like this, which is so bumpy, a short track that has unique characteristics, and is one where you don't see it too often on the iRacing service, let alone in real life headlines anymore?
Yeah, I think I've always really, really liked Rockingham. I was super excited to see it on the schedule. And it's one of those tracks where it kind of takes you a few minutes to remember. Once you know it, I feel like it's a little bit like riding a bicycle. And, once you get a few minutes to get back in a rhythm and remember how it all feels, um, then you can do pretty well here. So it's a track I really like. I know a lot of people dislike it, but I've always done very well here. So honestly, I was surprised at how easy it was for me to have a good run tonight.
Next race on the calendar, though, is one where teamwork could come into play, as well as potential carnage. It's Talladega. Your thoughts as in that Fast Forward Esports machine heading into Talladega?
Yeah, just cross your fingers and pray, right? I mean, Daytona this year ran in the back all day, almost lost the draft, then was up to third and got caught up in somebody else's crash. So you never know what's going to happen. I honestly don't prefer speedway racing, but I guess I got a good chance to win it as anybody. So see what happens.
Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you get going tonight?
Yeah, all the guys at Aegis, and congratulations to Andrew on another win. I'm sure he mentioned it, but he was working really, really hard to keep that car in one piece tonight, and he did a good job. Thank Ross Cato, Fast Forward Esports, fastforwardesports.com. We're getting ready to host some charity races later this year to benefit some great causes. And so, and then thank you guys for what I'm sure was an excellent broadcast.
Thank you very much for the time. Congratulations on your best finish this season.
Thank you.
That was Galen Gibman coming home in third. Evan, back over to you.
Well, as always, want to say a big thanks to all of the drivers for chatting with us post-race. And I'll agree with Andrew, but he said that, green flag pit stops at Rockingham is not something that you see every time you hop into a race session here on the service, just because it is such a difficult racetrack on an individual car level. So very impressed with all of the action that we saw tonight. A good run down to the end, Justin. And I believe now, with Kyle Trudell notably not making a start tonight, coming in second in the championship, that means that Andrew Freenage has mathematically secured the 2020 championship. So congratulations to Andrew for taking the Icebreaker title.
Yeah, just pure domination all campaign. When you get 6 out of 8 victories in a 10-race campaign, you deserve a championship, to say the very least. It's just been that type of season and that type of campaign. Andrew, just pure domination. Congratulations once again to him to come away with this title.
You alluded to it as well, a little bit talking about those drivers as the championship is now decided. Of course, 2 weeks still to go. Phoenix, the finale, no doubt. But next week at Talladega, we already started the season off with the plate race at Daytona. That's one of now only 2 races this year that Andrew Freenage did not win. Of course, Dega, a little bit different than Daytona, but that's coming up next Monday.
Yes, indeed, a little bit bigger, and you're able to hold more confidently 3 wide racing across that racetrack. It's going to be curious to see how it goes, but I think it's going to be a potential absolute thriller, to say the very least, to see who will come home with the W. It's going to be important to see the mixture of teamwork, car ability to avoid incidents, as well as strategy to see who will take home the W.
And of course, we hope that you join us next time out. But until then, that's it for us here tonight from the virtual Rockingham Speedway. On behalf of our entire team at LSR TV, encourage you to stay up to date with us by logging on to RealSimRacing.com and by engaging on socials. You can go to Facebook.com/LSR TV official and follow us on Twitter at LSR TV for more. For myself, Evan Pasoko, for Justin Prince and our producer, Randy Jenneth, want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Andrew Freenage, who's now not only a 6-time winner, but now a back-to-back Icebreaker champion. We're not done, though. More action coming up next Monday on January the 27th. As always, it's a 9 o'clock Eastern Time start from Talladega. That race and every race can always be found right here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until then, good night from the Rock.